I'm I'm shocked, y'all. I'm shocked a little bit about my feelings and the fact that I just might agree with Blair White on something. Don't get me wrong. There's still a bunch that we fundamentally disagree on. I definitely don't necessarily like respect the way she goes about things, especially as a trans person. I don't know. There's a lot that I don't understand, but at the same time, trans people are not a monolith. We all have different opinions. We have different ways of expressing ourselves. Some of us are liberal, some of us are conservative, and I think that is great. I think that for us to all be the same type of person is just boring and ineffective. Things shouldn't be that way. We should all be different and let our differences be reflected. Um, but at the same time, I do think that, especially towards the end of the video that Blair White shared, there were some things that I agreed with, but there were also a lot of things that I fundamentally disturbed me as well. And I think that this video is good because I wanted to talk about this a little bit more. I talked about this in my last live stream, but I want to talk a little bit more. I'm pretty positive Blair White does not believe in non-binary folks for sure. There's, like I said, there's so much that I fundamentally disagree with Blair White about. There's one tiny thing that I might agree with her on, and I wanted to talk about that specific thing, especially because I think that as trans people, like, I don't know, we have to maybe we have to figure out some way to get along with each other. I even think, like, for example, like, for example, in our greater class struggle that we're a part of, we share class with people who don't have the same opinions as us, but we are all kind of like, dealing with the situation. Okay. Anyway, what I want to do in this video is react to her video. I don't know if I want to watch all of it minute for minute, but I definitely want to kind of start it after a couple minutes, skip the intro where she's just kind of talking about her life, and I just want to just want to talk about her perspective a little bit and talk about what I'm thinking of. Yeah, I have a lot of opinions about this whole situation, and I think that it's important to talk about. So let's get started. I'm not sure. I forget where she is in this part, but she's talking about
As though trans
something.
discourse specifically and like the politics surrounding like the trans topic had just kind of reached a level of toxic that was so incongruent with my life, which is just fun and lighthearted, and it just felt icky to like come on here and talk about it. And then of course it got even worse than when I took my break with
Sorry, I'm just trying to speed this up a little bit just because I don't want to listen to her talk for that long. I'd rather let's go 175 because I really don't want to listen to her talk for that long.
Audrey Hale, the trans shooter in Nashville. And we need to talk about this. It's all people want me to talk about. It's all I really want to talk about. So let's get into it. Unless you've been living under a rock, you know that there was a disgusting tragedy in Nashville. Now, first things first, there's a lot of hoopla and politics surrounding this tragedy, which we're going to get into. We're going to break down step by step. But the first thing I want to say is I haven't heard anyone using the words Christian hate crime in regards to this tragedy. And to me, if it was any other group of people, that would be a no-brainer. If it was a mosque, if it was a gay club, and we've seen incidents at those types of places, and they're rightfully called hate crimes. This to me was a Christian hate crime. So I just want to put it out there. I'm not religious. I'm not Christian.
This is super interesting to me. I don't really know how to react to this aspect of it. Um, I I think that we don't know what happened. I think also that like there are a lot of situations where as soon as something happens in a certain situation, people are like, it is a hate crime directed towards the people that were hurt, which can definitely be a thing. But right now, I don't think that we actually know what's happening. So I think that she's being presumptive a little bit. I definitely can see that it seems like this school was targeted or something like that, but this is also a school that this person that he went to. So like, yeah, I'm not sure. And then the fact that she says she's not religious is interesting because of what she says a little bit later, and I'll talk about that when she says it.
I don't relate to being Christian in any way, but you'd have to be blind to not see that that is one of the last few groups that you can sort of launch hate at and escape consequences for it. That's just a fact. So my heart is with the Christian community in Nashville first and foremost. And obviously,
But also like that's fundamentally untrue. Like this isn't like this obviously isn't a Christian nation. Like there are people of a lot of different religious beliefs and stuff like that. A lot of people are religious fundamentalists also, in a very large way. Our Christmas is a national holiday, so I don't really know about the whole Christian persecution thing. I just think once again, maybe one day I'll talk about the subreddit called persecution fetish, which I think a lot of Christians have, but that's another opinion of mine.
Obviously, the parents of these children that lost their lives to this disgusting demon that is now burning in hell. Like, and it's really
That part where she says the disgusting demon that's burning in hell, which is interesting that she would say that she's not religious and then talk about the person burning in hell. Also, if it's not clear already, I am like disturbed and disgusted by this shooting. I think anybody would have that reaction. That is my primary reaction to this. It is disturbing that several young children and innocent people passed away. Like point blank, period. That's my perspective on this whole situation. Now, there are other political aspects that are being kind of ramped up because of this situation, and that makes me annoyed. But that feels like they feel like separate things a little bit here. But yeah, I think we'll get more into it as we move on.
an interesting place in society when immediately when we hear about a mass shooting, when we hear about a tragedy like this or a violent crime of some sort, everyone starts sort of like racing to find out the identity of the shooter because that just matters so much in today's climate, right? Was the shooter trans? Was the shooter black? Was the shooter a white Christian male? Was it people want to know who to blame? We are tribal beings and we want to place the blame on a group of people. We want to place the blame on anything. There are people that are placing the blame on hunks of metal, aka guns. People becoming gun grabbers all of a sudden on the side of the political aisle that normally are not gun grabbers. There's a lot of BS happening. People are blaming the fact that Audrey was on
So also, okay, and then also she's about to say that people blaming Audrey being on, or I forget what, Aiden. I forget. Yeah. God damn it. Okay. I think my phone should come back. Okay. I forgot to put my phone on do not disturb mode, and I don't care enough to fix it. So hopefully that doesn't happen again. Anyway, but I agree. We are very much tribal people. We are going to look for who to blame. We're going very much, people are like, okay, was the person white or black? We're so like racialized and polarized. We very much want to find out who the person is to blame. And I also heard a couple of people potentially blaming testosterone, making people violent, etc. Which is just like not, which is a stereotype about testosterone. I definitely think mood changes are very normal. Added aggression is normal. Frustration or anger, like things like that, that's normal when a person changes hormones. Period. Differences in emotions are normal with hormone changes. Period. But also with testosterone, there are some stereotypes about it, and I don't think that those stereotypes are fair. And Blair White does continue to say that this person there's no proof that the person even was on testosterone. So like we're making some claims that may not actually be accurate.
testosterone, even though I have seen zero evidence of that. I have not seen this person's prescription, and it definitely doesn't look like this person has been masculinized. Testosterone is a very powerful drug, and usually when biological females are on it, they're like 2 months and have a full beard.
Also, stop it, Blair. Please stop spreading misinformation about testosterone. Is there any trans masculine person who's been on testosterone for 2 months with a full beard? Anyone ever? That is horrible misinformation. I know that you're probably just joking a little bit, but like right now, I don't think we need more misinformation about what happens in the trans experience. So people have different reactions to testosterone. Someone who's on a high dose or standard dose of testosterone might notice very quick changes. They might notice significant changes in a few months. Actually, maybe they will notice some facial hair growth. But the whole full beard in 2 months is a horrible misinformation. And with such a large platform, I would hope that you would do better, Blair.
Basically, like I don't personally think this person was on testosterone, and even so, it's like a lot of people are on testosterone and don't go on mass killing sprees. You know what I mean? The only evidence I have seen of the shooter being trans in any sense of the word that makes sense to me as a trans woman who has transitioned is that she had he/him pronouns in her bio. Again, I haven't seen any like masculinization in any of the pictures. It doesn't look like there was a transition that took place.
So like one of the things that is odd, I think the volume is kind of quiet. I hope that this helps. So one thing that's odd to me is like it is interesting that like when a person is kind of like, hey, like this is like my name and how I want to be described. Um, and like it'll be like clear, like, I know that, for this person it was just in their LinkedIn bio, but then they like will say like she had he/him pronouns. It just is interesting the way that they do it. Like I, for example, care, just once again to make my position very clear, I care a lot more about kids getting hurt than I do about even me being misgendered. Like, I would personally prefer to get misgendered a couple of times than have children be hurt. You know what I mean? So, like, I definitely have, and I think pretty much everyone has that opinion. But at the same time, I definitely understand why trans people who know what it's like to have the experience of being misgendered and also who have a lot of fears. I know that I have fears, and other trans people have fears of dying and being misgendered in death. And we are seeing it happen in a large scale right now, regardless of what this person did or whatever. I'm saying that like we're over here seeing a trans person that has died, and then people using their birth pronouns or whatever for them. And I think as a trans person, Blair, I'm sure that you would probably would understand how that would probably not feel very good. Like for example, if someone dug up your bones and said, "Oh, look at this male," and just started using he, him, and then found out what your dead name was and started calling you that in death, you wouldn't be offended because you would be dead. But I'm sure that you would understand how in life right now, you would probably not desire that for yourself in the future. But if I'm wrong, please correct me because you're definitely going to be watching this video with me and my like tiny channel, but whatever.
Place at all. So I guess, this is where the left messed up with self-ID, right? Anyone can be trans now. So by their standards, now we have to own that. That was a trans person, despite just having pronouns in their bio, like every other white liberal on the planet. Cool. Now we have to take that person on as one of us, right? But the infantilization and the sort of victimization of the
It's so funny. Like, what do you want? Like, what do you want more than a person telling you they're trans? Like, it's so odd. Um, I guess because we're in the situation where like within the trans community, we have some people who are like, you need to look trans to be trans. Like you need to look like the other gender or whatever to be real trans. Like apparently this person not trans enough didn't make it, which is super interesting because I don't know, like what is the characteristics? Like would he have had to have like I don't know, made a post saying I am a trans person? Like I don't know what would have made it more clear. I know that yeah, I'm not gonna spend too much time commenting on everything.
shooter at the hands of the media and the LGBT community has been amazing. And I want to address the ways in which the right is abusing this tragedy as well and using it in ways that are disgusting as well. But let's start with the left.
I need to find the best way to learn math and science.
No one cares.
It's brilliant.
What?
Okay.
I wonder if the parents of the victims of the Nashville shooting today would still have their children if these trans bills in Tennessee were never a thing. I'm not a parent, but if I were, I'd be real mad at the government.
And if you think no one's victimizing this shooter, trans activists showed up to the Tennessee Capitol and held up 7 fingers to represent 7 victims of this incident, including Audrey Hale, the person who did it. Let's watch.
Every death is a tragedy, y'all. Said it lies. I'd say there was 7 victims.
The New York Post, Nashville shooter Audrey Hale was heartbroken over.
Hold on a second. So you're gonna wait. Okay, real quick, just so that once again, I think this is more misinformation here. When a shooting occurs, the deaths are the total deaths. So, for example, before I did this video, I did some research on the Columbine shooting, and in that shooting, damn, now I forget the number. I think it was 17. But on the article that I read, it said 17 deaths, including the perpetrators. So it's actually very normal to include the perpetrators in account of like people who have died. Like I will not say like Audrey was not like is not a victim in this situation. There were a perpetrator, I will say. Is there anywhere where Audrey was ever Aiden was ever a victim? I apologize for continuously like dead naming this person and being confused with their pronouns just because there's so many things in the media. Help me, you know what I'm saying? I hope everyone understands that and can give me some grace. But yeah, when that happens, like I said, there definitely are places where probably where I might have considered Aiden a victim. Like for example, with mental health situations, if there was any bullying or being taken abuse or anything like that, they would have definitely been a victim of that, right? Two mutually exclusive things can exist at the same time. That is a fact. Two things can be true at the same time. They were a violent perpetrator who did probably one of the worst things that a human being could ever do. and a thing that is disgusting and awful and terrible and should never be done. But then at the same time, they might have had problems and issues in their life and could have had abuse happen to them. I don't know. I'm not making any of these claims. And then also the part of the claims of the bill in Tennessee, and if the bill in Tennessee not happening, the shooting not happening, we don't know whether or not this person did the shooting because of the laws in their state. Could that have contributed? As maybe. I know that the laws impact me and my emotions as a trans person, so I'm sure that it might have impacted theirs as well. But yeah, it's just like it's a frustrating thing. And I want to mention this comment here. The thing about misgendering trans people as a punishment for their crimes, behavior, or even just perceiving malicious intentions is that cis people believe that accepting trans people should be conditional, which is very true and very upsetting. One of the people in the comments of this thing here was like, seeing how the left is responding is making me not want to support trans people. That should be disturbing. That should be disturbing to you as a person. The fact that you're willing to change your support of an entire group of people based on one person's actions and people's like response to that. Like, and also like trans people are not the left. Like the left is a political ideology, I guess. I don't really know. But trans people are not the left. They're people. They are individuals with a medical. I think that being trans is at least partially a medical condition. So they are people with a medical condition that impacts their perception of their gender, that oftentimes will need medical treatment. That is what makes a trans person, like at least in the medical sense of what a trans person is. Like that's not. It's not the left. I agree that there are some ridiculous things that people say on the internet. I 100% don't disagree with, but the fact that you will no longer support someone because they're idiots on the internet is really sad and kind of disturbing.
That's the friend she was infatuated with. Why are we victimizing this hoe? Raise your hand if you've ever experienced heartbreak. Raise your hand if you've ever been in the fetal position, so effed up over a man or a woman or whatever you're interested in that you don't think you can go on in life anymore. You don't think life is worth living. You have dark thoughts. And also raise your hand if you didn't go shoot up a school and take your kids out, right? Like, I don't know why this has to even be a headline, victimizing this. Nashville mass shooter Audrey Hale was rejected by her Christian parents who couldn't accept she was gay and trans. Okay, cool. I have half my family that's just on me for being trans.
Oh crap.
In fact, doesn't make me want to go hurt.
I didn't know that the kid that he was gonna shoot his family too. Wow. And in my like I have like that kind of makes more sense to me. Like attacking the people who have hurt you directly, but I guess like attacking innocent people like doesn't make sense to me. Like I know what it's like to get hurt and kind of want revenge against a person. I've never wanted to hurt somebody like that before, so it's so far out of like what I can even like rationalize with, because I've never gotten to that point. But I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like to feel hurt and to be rejected. And I agree with Blair on this point. Like I have had a lot of crappy things happen to me, but I've never wanted to hurt anybody else as severely as this person did. So there's definitely something going on that's unique to this individual person. This person is not like a representative of the trans community as a whole.
Anyone. People on the left in particular are saying, well, what do you expect to happen, right? There are all these anti-trans laws happening in Tennessee. Okay, so I'm just gonna put this out there for anyone who needs to hear it. Clearly a lot of people, because I've seen this sentiment. Oh, of course there's gonna be, violent incidents. Look at all these anti-trans, anti-drag laws in Tennessee. So because there are laws that exist against sterilizing children, that means you should take them out. Like, I don't understand. Again, I lived in California my entire life. And
so like, I disagree with her sterilizing children bit about that part because of what their perspective on doing a medical care for trans youth. I'm not really going to talk about that here. What I am going to talk about is the fact, wait, I forget. Let me just transfer what you just said.
That means you should take them out. Like, I don't understand.
So basically the fact that the laws in the state directly correlated to this person's actions. Once again, we don't know why this person did this thing. Everybody on the left is also projecting a lot of stuff. So I agree with Blair here. They're making up a whole bunch of stuff. We don't know why this person did this thing. At the same time, I agree. It doesn't really matter. Like a lot of bad things can be happening to you, but I also don't think that kind of condones violence. but the thing is, so situations are different because, you know, for example, I'm a Haitian individual, and my people were oppressed in Haiti, and they did a violent uprising, you know what I'm saying, and gained their independence. So it's like, right, there are certain situations where kind of enacting violence, people might understand it, or a greater cause or whatever. But this type of a situation, when like there are laws being passed, and let's say this is why the shooting occurred. Let's say that this is why. This is ineffective, an ineffective way of dealing with the situation. An uprising for slavery, like I think that is a pretty direct correlation. But hurting innocent children does not do anything for the cause. And I remember I was talking to my wife about this, and I was like, in my head, I was like, why would you do this as a trans person? Like, you know that you are going, because if you read the message that he sent to his friend right before he did the shooting, he was like, you might see me on the news. And he knew that what this would do to society and to people. And it's not going to make things good for us as trans people. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? I would doubt that this was the exact cause. I don't think that they were doing this for some greater, like punishing Tennessee. Like, it just doesn't seem logical. At the same time, if you're going to hurt a lot of people in this way, then you're probably not in a very logical space also.
Understands. Again, I lived in California my entire life, and if I made a video about the plethora of laws I disagreed with in the state I was living in at that time, I think it would be like a 2-hour documentary. So not really seeing the connection here. What we do need to talk about is the fact that people in this community are defending the shooter and more upset about misgendering the shooter than the fact that the shooter did what the shooter did.
Aiden Hale, that's the name of the Nashville shooter. This video is about to be very uncomfortable for a lot of us. It's very uncomfortable for me to talk about, but we need to talk about it. Aiden did a very horrendous thing. Period, point blank. We need pew reform in our country. But the way that the media and the police are misgendering and dead naming Aiden is quite concerning. It's also concerning that I had to go to the Telegraph from UK to actually get Aiden's chosen name. It's upsetting that constantly it is she, her pronouns. That is incredibly frustrating, because even though they did this horrible thing does not mean that we get to do those things. That's a boundary, and we can hold people accountable without being transphobic, even for some of the most horrendous things. So while you're watching this, also watch for transphobia, because it's very clearly coming out.
So like this is what I wanted to. Now, this is not what I agree with her on, but this is one of the points that I think is really important to talk about here. And I think that it's possible to have a nuanced conversation about this. It's possible to once again believe two things at one time: that this is a horrendous crime that is literally nauseating, you know what I mean, in a lot of ways. And then at the same time, people are kind of people are being, you know, like generally not, like, they're just not doing the correct things in terms of like what you do to people. Kind of, someone else gave an example that I think is kind of useful. It's not an exact correlation, but it's a useful example. So for example, if like a Black person dies and we just like go and call him a bunch of slurs, race related slurs, everyone's like, it's okay because he did a crime, so we're not going to give him any respect. Like, sure, you have the right to do that. You have the right to be a jerk if you would like to be a jerk, but you can just recognize that you're being a jerk for that reason. And then at the same time, we can still like call a person their name. You know what I mean? It's just not. In a lot of other situations, like a person, if they had like a name that was more popular, like someone might use it. In the media, we tend to use like birth names, legal names, which is common. Also kind of frustrating and upsetting. But I'm curious to see what Blair has to say about this whole thing.
Girl, shut the fuck up. I don't know who needs to hear this, but misgendering is the least of what should happen to someone that does what Audrey Hale did. The least. I'm sitting over here hoping that her sentencing in hell is for eternity, and this person is up here, we should not be transphobic, and I can't believe I had to go to a website from the UK to find her name. You're stupid. When I hear of a
Okay, so like I disagree so much. I agree and then I don't at the same time. Like, one thing that I think that Blair is doing incorrectly is I think that she really is assuming that the person is equating misgendering with the shooting, and I don't think anybody is doing that. I think 0% of people are equating these things as equal. I think that people are realizing that this is a terrible thing that's happening. And also they're like, this is kind of shitty to watch a trans person be misgendered over and over again. Once again, Blair, as a trans person, I'm sure you understand what it's like to be scared of being misgendered in death. If you don't understand that, I don't I don't get it, right? I don't get it. Once again, a lot of people have called Blair the like pick me trans person. You can decide whether or not you agree.
A tragedy like this, the last thing on my mind is trans rights. Like, it doesn't even come into the bubble, right? Because that's the thing about being an LGBT cultist and just being like a person who happens to be an L, a G, or B, or a T, right? Is that like I'm like in the real world and like I have friends who have kids and like I'm around people and like I leave my house for reasons other than like screaming at the state capitol and I get offline sometimes. So like the reality of like a bunch of kids getting shot is deeply disturbing to me. A lot more disturbing than misgendering.
Right. Like I agree. I and like this I agree with. So it's like there's a lot I disagree with her. There's a lot I agree with. Fundamentally, death is a lot worse than misgendering. You know what I'm saying? Um, but at the same time, you guys know, like in your own hearts, you know that it can feel like death, like emotionally when you get misgendered. Like we can have these really intense emotions around getting misgendered, and I think that's probably what causes people to feel very passionately about sharing their opinion about this. The thing is, like I agree. I don't think that misgendering people is a cool thing. I don't agree with the fact that like misgendering is the least that should happen to this person. I don't agree with that. Like, I don't think that if someone commits a crime, like we should like disrespect their personhood. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's just my thing. Like, I think a punishment is different than kind of like disrespecting a person's personhood. Um, like, yeah. And then once again, with the hell stuff, she's like, I'm not religious. And she was doing this voice. I'm going to do it for her. I'm not religious. I'm not religious at all. But then she's like, I really hope that his hell sentence is the worst of the hell sentences. Who like I'm pretty sure it's only religious people that believe in hell, like actually. So I'm confused by what you're saying. Or are you just trying to pander to your Christian audience? Who knows?
Get off the internet. The White House press secretary said that their hearts are with the trans community at this time.
Our hearts go out to the trans community as they are under attack.
How about the families of the kids? I gotta tell you, I know if
And then also, like, I didn't watch the thing with the press secretary, but did the press secretary not say anything about the victims' families? I didn't see it, but I would be shocked if she didn't also say something about that. But the thing is like the way and what Blair says later in this video literally reflects that trans people are at least being focused on maybe too much in the media in maybe a negative way. And she's like, oh, they're not being attacked. You know, like you would have to be blind to not see what's going on here. Like you'd have to be deeply blind and ignorant. I keep making this thing small. And while I make
I'm
this
this
bigger,
over the trans stuff.
I actually want to say this other thing that make sure you have a life outside of just being a trans person. There's so much more to life than being trans. Like this is such a small aspect of my life. You know, I think when you're like in transition and you're having to go do a lot of stuff, or you're in recovery from a surgery, or you're doing hormones or whatever, like you might be thinking about it a lot, and it's like front of mind. But like once you get past a lot of that stuff, like you're just living your life, and like being trans is just another part of your life. Go outside, have fun, make friends offline if you can, and just have conversations about other things other than trans politics. I think sometimes we need that. So I think that's actually good advice.
I can't imagine how the average person feels. Like further than over it. Like I'm so over it, I'm under it constantly. It's suffocating. Like it's disgusting. And not that literally any of this is about me right now, but I do have to somewhat address the fact that it's an interesting time to be sort of like the face of like trans gun ownership right now. Obviously, like just a few weeks ago, I went viral for holding a gun in a bikini picture. So like imagine my GMs, imagine my mentions during this time, insane. But I want to say that no matter what happens out in the world, my principles are not shaken. And it's been very interesting watching on the conservative side, people's principles being
Which I think is interesting. Like, I do appreciate that about Blair, that she's saying whatever happens in the world, my perspective will remain firm. And I would say that I believe that same way about a lot of things as well. I do want to pause quickly just for this comment because I think it's really important. And I agree. Like, even if the shooter was religiously abused and went to a Christian school that's reported to have CSA, which is awful, I will still never forgive him. He not only killed kids, but he did it during all of the anti-trans legislation. I agree 100%. That's why I said what I said earlier. I feel furious with this person who's not even alive anymore. I feel furious that they would do something like this at this time. And in my selfishness, I'm like, maybe you could have just taken yourself out alone. And that's me just being honest. And maybe that's wrong of me to say or to think. But it's so devastating that a person could be so, I don't know. It just feels very thoughtless. And the thing is, I don't know this person. I don't know. I wasn't in their head at the time. And when you're in such, like, you have to be so far out of your body, out of reality to do something that evil. And now that's why, yeah, you have to be so disconnected from reality to do something like that. But yeah, I'm going to be forever furious with this person. What they did was unforgivable.
Shifting up a little bit. Suddenly, I'm seeing a lot of conservatives on Twitter talk about how red flag laws might be appropriate and that people who are trans or people who have gender dysphoria shouldn't be allowed to own guns. We have Ben Shapiro. Let's watch that.
I'm perfectly fine with banning people who suffer from gender dysphoria from purchasing weapons. That seems to me a pretty significant symptom of an underlying mental malaise that could theoretically be a problem in terms of owning firearms. But I don't think the left believes the same thing.
Sorry for the ads. Okay, I'm just trying to get this going. My computer's being weird. So, yeah, Ben Shapiro's like,
Really interesting.
don't let the trans people have guns because they're mentally unstable. We've been saying this for a long time. Not trans people. We've been saying that mentally unwell people should not have guns. Generally, we should have a lot more gun reform, and people should not have semi-automatic weapons. I don't know what's the point of things like that. I don't understand why a regular person, even a hunter, would need anything like that at all. I fundamentally don't understand why you would need any of that. But it's interesting that outside of all this stuff, they're like, no, we don't need to put any laws in place for people who with mental health. We just guns, just lots of guns everywhere. But as soon as a trans person kills someone, then they're like, oh yeah, these mentally unwell trans people really are going to be dangerous to society, etc. And that's problematic. I think that it's kind of ridiculous that, and I think it's flaky. It's flaky for them to say this. It clearly displays that they have this malice towards trans people, that trans people's mental illness is somehow more degenerate than other mental illnesses, because apparently this one condition deserves some type of flagging, but no other condition does. That feels disturbing to me.
So Ben Shapiro, who has, throughout his career opposed red flag laws and has supposedly been so pro 2A. I want to say also, as someone who is truly pro 2A, if you are pro 2A and you put a but after that sentence, you're not pro 2A. And I don't know what kind of conservative is going to fix his mouth, Ben Shapiro, to be on camera saying, yes, the government should decide who is mentally ill enough to not own a gun. Yeah.
It's just so flat. I don't relate to people who have who really are into guns. I just don't relate to that at all. So it's just so interesting to hear people defend it so harshly, but whatever.
Yeah, because that'll never be abused. I'm sure it could never be a slippery slope into believing that being a conservative is a mental illness, or that voting for Trump is a mental illness, right? Or that believing in God is a mental illness, right? All those things on the right that are demonized by people on the left and communists, all of those things can be deemed a mental illness by a government that is given the power to do that. So I don't know if you really want that smoke, Ben Shapiro. Maybe work on those principles a little bit, because you're reminding me a lot of the people on the left who like to give up their freedoms after a tragedy. All during the pandemic, all I heard was, yes, take away our right to go to work, take away our right to go to school, take away this, take away that, as long as I feel safe. So as long as Ben Shapiro feels safe, he's okay with the government saying this group of people doesn't get to own a gun. Let's talk about the fact that gender dysphoria is a hell of a mental disorder. And I'll say that to the day that I die. That, it's definitely a crippling mental disorder. It is not under even the most, forgiving definition, one that makes someone violent towards others. That's just not a trait of gender dysphoria.
Once again, here is a place where me and Blair agree. Definitely, I think that gender dysphoria is a condition that needs to be treated with medical care or therapy, or whatever. Well, therapy is a form of medical care, yeah. So some sort of medical care, but yeah, it's not something that makes people ridiculously violent. There are probably other conditions that probably have more violence that would probably be better on the list of conditions that would be for red flag laws or whatever. Um, I wish that she had that same opinion and like would be like, no, this is probably a good idea, not for trans people, but for like other people with other conditions that are, have more propensity to violence. Might be wise to have some regulations. Probably not, because we hate safety.
People who are mentally ill are more likely, of all mental illnesses, are more likely to be victims of violent crimes than the opposite, other way around. So if Ben Shapiro and the conservatives were suddenly, we need to have a conversation about trans people should own guns, come and take them. Come take them. I dare you to come try to take my firearms. It's not going to happen.
Sorry, like who is gonna do that? Who is gonna?
Anxiety. Should he not be able to have a gun because who knows what Stephen Crowder might do? I don't know about that. I do know about that. That's stupid and an insane slippery slope. And any conservative worth their salt would not be having any honest conversations right now about how a demographic of people, regardless of how much they have, negative emotions about that demographic, should have the right to the Second Amendment and a firearm taken away from them. And I'm one bitch it's not going to happen with. Because the truth is, collective blame is actually what causes tragedies like this tribal collective mindset. Because it's pretty clear now from the evidence of what we do know about this incident that Audrey clearly has some negative feelings about Christians as a group, right? Christian upbringing, wasn't so nice to her, went to a Christian school, probably had some negative feelings, didn't like Christians, had a collective blame for all of her problems and her life struggles on Christians. This instinct to jump to blame a group when something bad happens is just not the business. It's illogical, it's inconsistent, it doesn't make sense, and no one should be responsible for the crimes and the sins of another individual who is not them. It doesn't
make sense. I once again agree. I think that because I I know what it's like. I have to be honest, when I see like trans person and then the Christian school shooting, I was like damn it. Like, because I know how much I resent Christians, honestly. Like I'm not afraid of admitting it. I am not a fan of the religion. I spent the majority of my life in that religion. I have a lot of strong opinions on it. If you want to know them, watch the rest of my freaking channel. I have lots of videos talking about it. But at the same time, just because, I personally experienced tons of abuse at the hands of Christians, directly at the hands of Christians, directly for my gender and sexuality, does not mean that it's okay to hurt anybody for that reason. At the same time, like, I can spend the rest of my life being bitter and angry towards Christians for all of the pain and all of the suffering that I have gone through directly because of their beliefs and directly because of the things that they have done. But that doesn't mean that we get to be violent towards other people. That I'm just more of a pacifist type of a person. Other people might have other opinions, and I'm just not into violence very much. So like, yeah, if you have other types of ways of getting your aggression out, sure. But I'm just saying, like, hurting people is not the answer. And for other trans people who have been hurt by Christians, other trans people who have been hurt by other religious leaders and stuff like that, I'm really sorry that you've gone through that amount of pain. But I ask for you to make sure that you're getting help and that you don't give up on yourself. Like, you don't just, yeah, don't give up on yourself. Like, there's always things that you can do. There's always people who you can ask for help. Even if it's me, reach out to me on Instagram at Mad Magic if you need someone to talk to. Like, because this does not need to happen. I don't know what it is. Like, maybe we as trans people need to be more supportive of each other so that we can not go out there and commit violence because we're broken inside. It's okay to be broken. It's okay to have moments where we feel so torn apart and hurt because of the things that have happened to us in the past. But there are other ways to deal with it. There are other ways there are even other ways to tell someone about what they did. There are other ways to get revenge than hurting other people. Yeah.
makes sense. I would like to have a conversation about the anti-straight, anti-white man, anti-cis sentiments that exist in trans spaces online, LGBT spaces online. If people don't think that can translate into some real life stuff, it can. This is one of the things that turned me off the absolute most when I first started my transition. I went to a couple like trans support groups, like before I actually started my medical transition. And I was just, looking for advice, looking for guidance, hoping there was a community of people that were cool behind it. Right. I was wrong about that. But what I noticed immediately was there was an encouragement to have an adversarial relationship with straight people, cis people, hate that word, with white men, that these are the cause of our problems. These are our oppressors.
Super interesting again. Like I think I might want to talk more about political stuff in my videos because I have a lot of opinions, but like, I'm skipping some of this because I don't really want to talk about this particular issue here. It's just, once again, like when people who have been like at the top of the chain for forever like experience any type of difficulty or prejudice or something, they're like so terrified by it, and we're over here like this has been our life for forever. Like like I don't know, I've been used to being kind of like the butt end of the joke my entire life, and now it happens to a couple of straight white people, and they want to have like throw a fit. This is not me saying that prejudice is okay. This is not me denying the fact that there are people who are in the trans and LGBTQ community who are very much like, I don't ever want to talk to straight people, or I don't ever want to date cis people or whatever. There are definitely people who have those opinions. Sure. Is that everybody? Definitely not. Lots of straw manning happening here, by the way, very much kind of taking like her experiences in the group. Oh, then this means it's all the trans communities are going to treat straight white men badly. Come on, dude. Oh, wait.
So while these Reddit mods are taking down rational posts about gender dysphoria, about gender transition, and silencing the more rational among us, they are uplifting the crazies that want us to hate the outside world. I transitioned to be a part of the world. I didn't transition to be on the outskirts with this adversarial mindset, with this that's them and this is me. No, I'm part of the world. And when I moved to Texas, I got so many people, I saw it on trans Reddits and trans groups, and I got tweets and everything from people saying, I can't believe Blair thinks she's going to move to Texas and not get hate crimes. These are real things that were said. I can't believe Blair thinks that she's going to move to Texas and be accepted. Guess where I've never felt more accepted? Is Texas. Because again, this is
which makes so much sense for her, like with the way that she very much is like presenting as just like a cis white woman. I don't know if that's her race. I'm pretty sure she's a white person. But yeah, like she's very much kind of like, there's a lot of people in the trans community who have very varying opinions. Some of them are like, I just want to transition and be stealth and kind of like disappear. And I'm like, fantastic. Like you should be able to have your rights. But then there are other trans people who are a little bit like, I would like to kind of talk about my experience, be open and proud about like the person who I was and the person who I am right now. I want to talk about these experiences. I want to help other people express themselves and things like that. And that they're all fine. I'm pretty sure she's probably also talking about how there's a lot of like trans discourse right now and around medicalizing and transness and true scum and 2Q and trans medicalism. I said that before, but all that stuff, which I want to talk about in other videos, not right now, but whatever. Well,
real life. I've met so many straight white male, that's my entire friend group at this point, basically. And a lot of them actually didn't have positive views on trans people before becoming my friends. I changed that for them. And if there was ever a drop in my mind of like, poisoning from the trans community that was still kind of there, even despite the fact that I've always resisted that, if there was ever a doubt that maybe I would be unsafe in a place like this, it was washed away immediately when I actually got to know folks and be part of the real world. And I feel like I'm maybe going off on a tangent here, but again, it's the fact that after a shooting, you have people on the right, not everyone, but a lot of people rushing to blame the trans community. And then you have the trans community rushing to blame, Republicans. And it's like the responsibility for what happened lays at the feet of Audrey Hale's cold dead corpse. And for people who want to blame the gun, guess what? It was a gun-free zone, the school, which means there was no armed security to be there if someone decided to come with a gun. Something tells me, maybe I'm crazy about gun-free zones, that if you're willing to commit the crime of murder, you're not so much hung up on committing the crime of bringing a gun into a gun-free zone, right? The trans topic has become so disgusting recently, and it's not just because of trans people making the topic so vile anymore. It's everyone. It's everyone jumping in. And for whatever reason, this topic in particular, trans, attracts the most anti-pragmatic people, the least likely to come up with common sense solutions, and the most toxic, violent, and angry. Because there's a lot of reasons to be angry in this conversation. And people find their reason, and they jump in there, and all they talk about all day long is trans shit, and it's this gross cycle going. And these are the two sides. Well, actually, there's like 5 sides on this debate, but no one's,
right.
When words don't work, people start enacting out violence. And that's what's so scary, right? Like every day is.
So this take here, this is the take that I really agree with, and this is why I wanted to make this video. Blair makes such a good point here. She's like, there's just too much talk about trans people right now in the media, like, especially like, and I don't mean it in a way like trans people shouldn't be represented, like not like that. There's too much like discourse about trans people's lives right now. Like she said, when this thing happened, all the people on the right were like, let's just blame all the trans people. And the people on the left are like, I don't really know. Maybe let's blame the Christian. I don't know who they're trying to, I don't remember. Blame the guns. I don't know, but I agree with that. We should definitely blame the guns and the people as well. I think both guns and people, we should be able to do things about both of them. I don't think that we should it's just people. I think, yeah, anyway. But the fact that like there are so many people who are so obsessed with what is going on in trans people's lives is so outrageous, honestly, to me. Like, I don't understand how people can be so obsessed. So all of those people, all that Daily Wire bullshit, like, y'all just need to stop. Like, do something better with your life than talking about trans people. A lot of us, like, even though, you know, I talk about my transition openly and things like that, but I'm just a normal person. Like, I just want to live my life and like take my hormones and in peace and in quiet. And you know what I'm saying? Like, live my life. And that's pretty much it. I obviously want other people to be able to have the same experiences as well. But I really think that like it just needs to stop. Overall. I it's just, but it's not like me saying that isn't going to change anything, and it's just the way things are, just the way that they are. But I really do think that this is one of those things where visibility can kind of like become a problem. It's like we're being so it's like they have too much of an inside look into the community to the point where when other trans people will make content out of like satire. Um, for example, like Dylan Mulvaney's video about day one of being a woman thing, like, you know, I told someone that I felt fine even when I wasn't, and I wrote an email I never sent. Like all of this stuff is a joke. We should be allowed to joke about our trans experience. I should be able to make silly jokes about like my packer, or silly jokes about like testosterone or balding or what, like we should be able to make these types of jokes safely. But now we have to be afraid of our content being freaking thrown up on libs of TikTok if we say something too controversial or whatever. And we can have a whole bunch of people coming into our DMs like calling us slurs and death threats and stuff for like existing. This stuff happens. And I think that it's important to talk about these things. But I was surprised. I was surprised that I was listening to this video, and at the end I was like, wow, I like really agree with what she's saying here. I really think that people need to calm down. One other thing it reminds me of when you have like the gay people, or the people who look at a gay couple and like see children is like, oh my gosh, the kids can't see that, they're gonna think about like sex. And it's like, why is it that whenever you see a gay person you think about butt sex? Like, what's wrong with you that you keep doing this? I feel like it's that with trans people. Like whenever they think about trans people, they think about their genitals and surgery, like all this weird stuff. Like, you guys need to calm down. Like, pay attention to your own lives or something. Come on.
It's a reminder for me to just stay in my house. Like I don't need to be in somebody's Walmart. Not that I go to Walmart. I go to Target, but I don't need to be anywhere where someone clocks me as trans and thinks I'm in there trying to commit a crime. I don't need to be anywhere where these leftists who think the Republicans are enacting genocide against them, that are, you know, like coming to get them, see me and want to snatch me by my weave. I don't need to be anywhere but my house lately. And that's why I feel
But also we should maybe have a nuanced conversation around the whole, like, you know, let's eradicate trans people situation thing that's been being said. I think that when you hear things like that going on, people should be a little bit concerned. Right? Like when someone says, let's eradicate this entire group of people, that doesn't sound like a safe situation. So, yeah.
listen, we're going to get through this, but it really is a scary time. And I just want to do my part to sort of lower the temperature on this topic. And like, I know that I'm someone that has injected a lot of venom into this topic and has allowed my emotions to get caught up in like,
Help me. Oh my God. Yes, Blair. Yes, Blair. Probably. I don't know. I don't watch a lot of your content, but I am positive that there are several people who have been radicalized, and not in a good way, because of your content. Radicalized against trans people. The one thing that's interesting that I do definitely think is true is that these types of conservative trans folks who are very much kind of like, yeah, poop, no castrating the children, like those types of people, kind of like, there's only one way to be trans, like those, when those types of people talk with the general public is like, okay, that feels safe enough to accept. I can accept that. I thought that trans people are all crazy, but you seem sane, so good, you're good. So like, that is kind of helpful, sort of. Like, at least people can know that like trans people are normal, but then they still have this opinion of the larger trans community, and that's kind of problematic. So just because people are okay with you, Blair, doesn't mean that you're actually helping people have a more open perspective about trans people as a whole. You know.
like this topic and been angry at times and maybe inspired other people to be angrier than they have to be, whether it's at me or at trans people or at Republicans or whatever. And I'm going to go forward, just really watch what I say, because it's very, not in a censoring myself way, but in just a tone way, in the sense of like, it's just so ugly. We have trans shooter now. I can't. I don't know the solution to mass shootings. I know that blaming people who didn't commit them is not the right answer. I know that taking away the rights of people who aren't ever going to commit anything like that is not the right answer. Like coming and taking my guns is not a solution to the fact that this disgusting person did this, right? And that's illogical. And you would think conservatives would know that, but I guess we're finding out some don't know that. I don't know how to make the trans community stop being crazy. I don't know how to integrate trans people into society. Sometimes I feel like I'm like walking through a dark tunnel trying to grab like my like insane cousins and like drag them through this like tunnel towards the light. And we're gonna get there, but they're really, really fighting me. You know what I mean? It's like it's hard. But I just want to extend my heart to the families of these kids and the national community. And it's just really bad. It's really sad.
Yeah.
I'm sorry my comeback after a month is not a happier video, but it's an important video. So
Yeah, and that's pretty much it, y'all. I'm broken too. Like I'm torn up inside, and this feels so bad. I'm glad to hear her say that she's gonna calm the fuck down. I'm glad to hear her say that she's not gonna be as inflammatory anymore. If anyone else has thoughts before I wrap this up, this is a good time to share them. Um, but like something has to be done. You know what I mean? And I also agree that like we need to there we need to figure out something. Like there are a lot of trans people who are like, I'm gonna be trans for political reasons and like be like very kind of countercultural. And I'm like, bit cool. At the same time, it's like I don't know, maybe there are people who just want to kind of create their own little side communities and just live there or whatever. Plenty of people, the Amish do that. You know what I'm saying? They barely connect with the rest of the world. So it's not necessarily that integrating with society is necessary, but I do think that maybe there's what I would say is like we need to figure out how to bridge the gap with kind of the rest of the world. Everybody kind of sees us as like, I don't know, these like crazy people or something, but like I'm just a normal guy. Like I'm just a person who just wants to be generally kind of treated with kindness and respect. Pretty basic things. And at the same time, you know, I recognize that we're in this place right now that there's a lot of very violent rhetoric that's going on. And what happened with the shooting, what Aiden has done, has really stirred the pot in not a good way. And on top of all of this, they have caused irreparable damage to countless people. Because it's not just the families that are suffering now. It's not just, you know, the adults that were killed. It's not them, then their families that are suffering. It's also all of the other kids that were there that are now most likely going to have to suffer with lifelong trauma as a result of dealing with this incident as a child. That feels like unforgivable to me in a lot of ways. So you're hearing it here live from a trans person that, at least for me, on behalf of the trans people that agree with me, we do not think that what Aiden did was acceptable, appropriate by any means, and we do not agree with that at all. We just, I think we understand how, you know, it can be a little bit triggering for people who are kind of like dealing with, you know, gender dysphoria to kind of see things like that happen in the media. And like I said, I think if trans people are honest with themselves, they would probably agree that it would be a little bit upsetting. I'm a kind of person, like I'm a trans person. I'm very aware of my biology. I'm very aware of my gender assigned at birth. I'm not ignoring that. I understand those things. You know what I'm saying? But we don't necessarily like to always be reminded of those things and have them be kind of brought to light and have people talk about our dead names or using words that don't describe our experience. It can be frustrating. So it's not. It makes sense to me why there are people who are upset about the misgendering in the public eye. But the bigger issue here is violence. The bigger issue here is mental health. The bigger issue here is like why did this person get to the point where they felt so bad they needed to hurt other people? All right, y'all. Yeah, this is a big deal. Thank you for being here and for watching this with me. I'm shaken up by this whole incident, and I really felt like it was important for me to share a little bit of my perspective. And then I think kind of, you know, talking about it with chatting it up with Blair a little bit, just was a good way to organize some of my thoughts around it. So yeah, I appreciate y'all. Like I said, you can reach out to me on Instagram at @mavmagic. You can find me, have conversation with me, chit chat, whatever you want to do. Love you guys. Peace, love. Hopefully I'll see you next time.